we see a change along the offensive line? And what is the future of George Pickens? Let's talk about it here in Below the Belt, which is sponsored by D&M Leasing and Window Nation. We are live here at Plano Fire Station number 5, 5115 West Park Boulevard for the next hour and 20 minutes. If you want to come out, say hey, chat us up, and just come out here, support the firefighters here in Plano, and get Nick Harris's autograph from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram as he's hanging out with us for the next hour and 20 minutes. Without Shan, who again is out today, just violent diarrhea. It's really bad. And if he's out at any time, you can guarantee that's the reason why. So you guys make sure to tweet at Shan, hashtag praying for your butt. All right, let's talk about the George Pickens scenario. So Dan Graziano had in his news and notes his update that he posts along with Jeremy Fowler every week where they talk about the things that they're hearing. The conversation had come up about George Pickens, and he had said that the Cowboys as it stands now are on a collision course for the franchise tag with George Pickens, which I believe is $29 million roughly. And this makes the most sense that a franchise tag is where things are. I think, gosh, all the way back in the summer, probably, Nick, we were looking at this and saying the likeliest outcome is he gets tagged, and they kind of figure out what to do from there. But I would certainly not trust them to negotiate this on an open market, so a tag makes a ton of sense. He, as Dan Graziano called it, a strong likelihood, which as soon as you reach the trade deadline, you didn't make a move there. Not that there was a huge likelihood you would move on from George Pickens, but you didn't make a move there. You still don't have a contract extension done. Now we're looking at, all right, tag him, and let's figure out what we do from here.
Yeah, and I would view a tag as more so a placeholder to be able to figure out what to do with George Pickens deeper into next offseason. So you place that tag on him, that would be March. And it would allow you to still work through an extension all the way up until training camp, or even through training camp, considering how these last few years have gone. And you have to factor in the agent. I know it's something that's kind of ad nauseum at this point, but you do have to factor it in, and the recent relationship that has been built off of that. You know, I think David Mulligeta's done a good job of expressing to the public that it's not going to affect any future negotiations with the club, but you know, it still has to be factored into this ordeal. And you know, is it going to be a situation where he's advising his client to hold out until there is a long-term extension done? George Pickens, if he's able to finish the season how he started it here through 9 games, he would have every right to, you know, and he would have earned that money from that one season that he had here in Dallas. And granted, he's on pace for over 1,000 yards and leading this team in touchdowns, so he would have to keep that pace in my eyes. But you know, what does a contract look like for George Pickens? I think that's going to have to be the question that the Cowboys will answer. And is the $34 million per year that CeeDee Lamb is making, is that the floor for George Pickens, or is that the ceiling? And I think that's going to be a very big question that both sides will have to answer during that negotiation. And once they get on the same page about that specific mark, I think it's going to make everything else a lot easier moving forward. But the franchise tag, it allows them to kind of have those conversations a bit more in the summer.
Do it. Are you share with him? Share with him your plan.
It's not a plan. It's not a plan.
Your suggestion.
Look, I am all in on signing George Pickens. I would love to sign him. My thought was, prior to the trade deadline, if you weren't going to sign him up to a long-term deal, and the way the season was going.
I'm talking about your alternative. You're very pro Pickens take.
You were better off just trading him if you're not going to sign him long term. Because if you do sign him long term, you do run the risk of being the Bengals, right, where you have nothing. So,
which I think that is likeliest. The deal we're talking about for Pickens is the T. Higgins deal.
The T. Higgins deal. I'm all in on signing him now. If you're saying that the floor could be CeeDee, what percentage chance do you see that he makes more than CeeDee in 2 years?
Yeah, that would be percentage-wise 25%.
But it's on the table.
I would say it's on the table.
It's on the table
considering his production this year and how he stepped up when CeeDee was out. There's going to be a lot of talking points for George Pickens at that negotiation table.
Yeah, and typically a lot of agents will approach it as, well, no, we don't negotiate based on that number. What we negotiate is how that number was a percentage of the salary cap, and where we fit in is a percentage of the salary cap into the future now, because the cap has gone up, and so this is how we'll check inflation. So, like, for instance, they could say, well, yeah, CeeDee's number was X percent of the salary cap. We're not even asking for that percentage cut of the salary cap in today's NFL. We're asking for the same dollar amount, but the salary cap has gone up, and there's been inflation. And so, CeeDee's, what is he? He's 34 a year? CeeDee?
34.
So CeeDee's 34 2 years ago or whatever it is. For us now, wanting 34, that's like 30 when CeeDee signed.
And the perfect comparison here, let's go back to the 2022 NFL season, just because that's technically 2 seasons ago, full off seasons. Tyreek Hill is the highest paid wide receiver at $30 million per year. $30 million per year right now is wide receiver 2 money. I mean, Brandon Ayuk is somehow getting, 28, 29. That's what you're saying, Bobby. The market has changed to the point to where it's like, yeah, okay, CeeDee Lamb, yes, he is this team's wide receiver 1, and he's making $34 million per year, but that was 2 years ago. The cap is a lot different. The cap alignments are a lot different. We are asking for this now at the table. It's more so about percentage of cap rather than how much money that is being made. And we heard that term from Micah Parsons a lot last year about percentage of cap, and you know that's going to be communicated to his client as well.
So, yeah, because that's where Bobby was going with. It's like one of the ideas was, I mean, if someone came to you and said, you're going to sign George, you're going to sign into CD money, if someone came to you and said, we'll give you 2 firsts for CD, like, is it a definite no?
Oh, yeah, for me it's a definite no.
Because obviously, like, the other side would be you're paying CD and George.
He has become a big Pickens fan.
And rightfully so.
He loves Pickens, and he loves the Pickens mentality. And so he's like, well, look, if we're going to have to part with one of them, I'm not so sure it is Pickens that I want to part with. Is kind of his thought.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to.
More is just a financial balancing.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to part with either one of them.
Yeah, balancing the checkbook.
I don't want to be the Bengals.
Yeah,
like
and I'm
scared of that.
I get that. I think this team has drafted a lot better than the Bengals. Granted, they really haven't in 23 and 24 still, open for discussion. But considering how Will McClay and his staff have drafted over the course of the past decade, it's obviously a lot different than the Bengals. They are positioning themselves, though, to where they need to be able to hit on these next couple of draft classes. I mean, they did that when they traded for Quinnen Williams.
Right.
And the money that they have allocated to the defensive tackle position right now alone, going into 26, they're going to have to figure out. But with the money that they already have on the books, they are going to have to hit on these draft classes. I don't think signing George Pickens or not signing George Pickens, I don't think it makes that big of a difference when you have already a lot of money tied into these big guys.
Before we talk about the offensive line question, because you just touched on it a little bit there at defensive tackle, with the acquisition of Quinnen Williams and what they've sunk in very recently into Osa Odigizua, we're right now looking at a question of Kenny Clark is not back in Dallas on that current number next year, right?
Yeah, and
that number would either have to change or he would have to. They would have to make a move, right?
Yeah, and you can't be dedicating $64 million to 3 defensive tackles, and it's either going to have to be a contract restructure. You have 3 scenarios to play this out. You contract restructure Kenny Clark, which is probably the most likely or the most reasonable.
He basically has no guaranteed money left. That is not a real $20 million you're looking
at.
Correct.
So that's probably the most realistic idea that you're looking at is restructuring the Kenny Clark deal. 2 would be extending Quinnen Williams and drawing his money out a bit further down the line, or trading one of these guys. And you're not trading Quinnen Williams. You just acquired him. You just signed Osa Odigizua. You would be taking on quite a bit of cap hit if you traded Osa. So you're probably looking at trading Kenny Clark. And
but
with
you
this
can't
team,
trade him to the NFC North.
Yeah,
the poison pill.
Exactly.
He's just as important as the Micah first rounder.
What did you think when you saw that?
I thought it was correct language by both sides. It makes sense. It allows both of these teams to be able to keep these guys out of their own division. That didn't bother me at all.
Who do you think suggested it first? Do
you think?
Do you think the Cowboys said it first, and then the Packers were like, okay, but we want a first 2 if you put Kenny Clark in Minnesota.
Here's what sources say happened. I promise this is a bit. This is not real. So they were finalizing this deal with the Packers. It was done. Howie Roseman called, and he was like, hey, so what for Micah? He's like, all right, F you. I'm hanging up the phone. He called back. Gutekunst in Green Bay, and he was like, yeah, we got to throw this.
We need this pill in here. All right. All right.
I did worry that it made them look scared of Philly. I think,
like I said, my take was more.
I agree with you.
I think it makes them more petty than scared. It makes them look like they're just they're a petty division rival.
I don't think Philly should have been Philly should have been scared, yes, but Washington as well. As much as Micah Parsons has talked about wanting to link back up with Dan Quinn, it was probably just as much as that as it was with Philly as well.
All right, we are out of here at Fire Station number 5 in Plano, 5115 West Park Boulevard. Shout out to Brennan in Dallas who came by in his Longhorns gear. I said, all right, you got that Longhorn shirt on, you're definitely getting a shout out here when we come back from break. The other question, the bit of news we saw yesterday, and it was just a very brief tweet from Calvin Watkins at the Dallas Morning News that said Brian Schottenheimer has acknowledged that there is an open competition at right tackle. the tweet did not say this, but obviously the thought there is then that Terrence Steele's job is in competition right now with Nathan Thomas, who has played some at left tackle, came in a little bit at right tackle in the end of the Arizona game, and honestly did not hold his own very well in pass protection. It was a rough look. What are your thoughts on the idea of opening that up as a right tackle competition, and how close a look? What do you think that looks like? Is that alternating series, or is it just going to be a practice week competition?
You know, the idea in theory right now, if it's a situation where it's alternating series, I don't like the idea. I think Nate Thomas, when he's come into the mix, has played well at left tackle, and we saw at right tackle against the Cardinals, it was not good. It was bad. And I think it was 5 pressures that he had given up in his handful of snaps. And I think Terrence Steele, he gives you reliability at that right tackle spot. Reliability is the one thing you have, really needed to rely on here early in the season, because he's been the only guy that has not had to miss some time at some point or another since the start of training camp.
Huge.
That availability is huge, one, but also his run block ability. And Clayton Adams, his influence on this offensive line scheme and this run game scheme, it's allowed Terrence Steele to really show off his run block ability. Now, granted, you have to have both. You have to have the run block and the pass protection. Terrence Steele has not had the pass protection, and that is eventually what's going to be why he gets replaced, whether that be this year or in the future. But with his run block ability and with the run game lanes that you've been able to pay for Javonte Williams, I think keeping Terrence Steele in there right now is the right answer. That's just me. I understand that there's a lot of fans that are done with Terrence Steele, ready to move on, and I get it. His pass protection has not been good since he came off of that torn ACL in 2022. But I think you should really look at the tape when it comes to the run block. I think, in my opinion, he's been the second best run blocker up front so far this season, and you have to keep that guy in there.
What is your level of confidence in not only just through the end of this year, but into the future with Tyler Guyton?
Yeah, that's a weird one, and you wish he was healthy for training camp so that you really saw the full ramp up and what he was able to throw on the field here early in the season. But you are seeing incremental improvements from him.
He's battling. He's not dropping his head.
But it's
Here's the comparison I have.
You can't do the, hey man, good job when it was a first round pick. That's what I struggle with. It's like you need to see more improvements from him, because when he came out of the draft, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good. Go.
When he came out into the draft, we understood that there were going to be some growing pains from him. 14 career starts, 13 at right tackle, 1 at left tackle. You understood that there was going to be time that he needed to get to his full first round potential. And I said it before he was drafted by the Cowboys on the draft show. I said, this is a guy that we're probably going to look up at after 2 years and be like, yeah, was that a first round pick? But then we look 2 years later and he's getting that 5th-year option because of that incremental improvement.
Yep.
But I feel like the incremental improvement has not been steep enough to where you can justify this first round billing as of right now.
Yeah, I think he's been improved in the last couple weeks. I will say that the way that I've described it is that he's holding his own in pass protection the last few weeks. But it's similar to like when you see somebody like they're not really swimming, but they're not drowning. It's a fight, but like it doesn't always look pretty technically, but it's at least you're getting the job done a little bit. I like I said, that there reached a point with Taco Charlton, Tristan Hill, Mozzie Smith of head hanging became the MO. And I think Guyton was close at the end of last year of getting to that point where he'd start dropping his head. I don't know if it's just Connor Riley has been a big boost for him in that respect, but I do think that he's rallied and keeps his chin up more consistently, and that gives me optimism that, all right, he might be able to tap into this. It might just be a longer growth period than we originally thought.